What a weekend it was. The NFL Divisional Round of the playoffs are in the books. Championship Sunday is upon us. We'll talk about that and much more. It's the Jake Asman Football Show, and it starts right now.
Oh, yeah. It's time for the Jake Asman Football Show. Brought to you by BetUS. Expert betting odds and fantasy stats. So let's get into some NFL football. Brought to you by our friends at BetUS. So get your questions ready. Here's your host, Jake Asman.
Here we go. Happy Monday. It's MLK Day. It's National Championship Day. It's Inauguration Day. What a day it is. And I want to thank everyone who's tuned in to the Jake Asman Football Show presented by BetUS. I went 4-0 with my picks on this very program. On Friday, a 4-0 weekend. I made some money over at BetUS. Hopefully you took my picks and you followed along. Make your own picks. Bet on any sport at any time with BetUS and take advantage of a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus with your second and third deposits. Shout out again to BetUS for being our sponsor. Let's hit on each game here on the Jake Asman Football Show. Key takeaways from the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Championship Sunday is set. It will be the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Washington Commanders in the NFC title game. Jaden Daniels getting it done against the Lions as a rookie. And then in the AFC, a classic. Buffalo, Kansas City. They meet again. Allen, Mahomes. That is your AFC matchup. So 4 teams left. And honestly, why can't any of these 4 teams win the whole thing? Right? We can't talk about Jaden Daniels like, oh, he's a rookie, he won't win a championship. How do we know that? Not the way he's playing. I think any of the 4 teams left have a shot to win the Super Bowl. It's not often you could say that, but I truly believe it, that when you look ahead to Championship Sunday, the 4 teams left all have a chance to win a title. It wouldn't shock me if any of them won a Super Bowl. I think it's a damn good Championship Sunday, if you ask me. Now let's go game by game. We'll go in order. Chiefs beat the Texans 23-14. I'm not surprised Kansas City won, but it's infuriating how the officials impacted that game. I'm not going to tell you that the Chiefs only won because of the officiating. That's not true. Houston missed too many kicks. Houston did not play well situationally. Houston made some questionable coaching decisions, like going for it on 4th and 10. And rushing the play, if you're going to go for it, don't you got to call a timeout, D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowick? Like, that was awful. But the officiating was worse. I'm sorry. I get it. Patrick Mahomes is great. I lost a lot of respect watching him flop. Watching him try and draw another unsportsmanlike penalty when he was gifted 2 in the game he didn't deserve. That was unwatchable. I can't stand the Chiefs. It stinks as a fan of a team in the AFC East that I actually have to now root for Kansas City against Buffalo on Sunday. But that was a brutal watching experience just as a football fan, as someone who really didn't have a dog in the fight. You know, I had my bets. I had the Chiefs winning and covering, which they did because we got it at an 8-point line on this show on Friday. Thank God we did, because the line closed at 9.5, and that safety might have cooked you if you're on a certain side. But, you know, I had no real rooting interest in this game. I just wanted a good football game. And it left such a bad taste in my mouth watching the way that game was officiated. It really did. You know, sometimes I think the Chiefs getting all the call stuff could be a bit overblown. Not after watching that. Like, that game was brutal. Even if you're a Chiefs fan, you got to acknowledge how one-sided the officiating was in that game. It sucks. No other way around it. Sucks. The nightcap was stunning. It's not that Washington won. It's how they won. For the Commies to take down the Lions and do it in that type of fashion really is stunning. I mean, Washington dominated this football game. Dominated. They made Jared Goff look bad. Let's call it for what it is. He was bad. He also might have been concussed in that second half. I mean, you force 5 turnovers, you're going to win. Unreal. You saw the Lions defense completely unravel They couldn't stop a nosebleed. What a great audition for Aaron Glenn, oh, by the way. Yikes. I mean, that was astonishing. The Lions completely crapped the bed. And now, where do they go from here? They're likely going to lose their offensive and defensive coordinators to head coaching openings. Man, you don't want to overreact to one game, but that Aaron Glenn defensive performance by the Lions and that offensive performance by Ben Johnson, yikes. Ben Johnson calling a wide receiver pass with the game on the line. I mean, they just completely unraveled. Dan Campbell's getting emotional after the game. I mean, you feel for the Lions fans. To win that many games, be the 1 seed, that type of favorite at home, and not even get to the NFC title game where they could have had that game in their building against Philadelphia, yikes. I mean, that's as devastating of a divisional loss as you could have from a Lions perspective. I mean, that's one of the bigger upsets in the divisional round we've seen since, Mark Sanchez and Rex Ryan went into Foxborough and beat Brady and Belichick. Since, the Giants with Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin went into Lambeau and beat the 15-1 Aaron Rodgers-led Packers a year after they were the Super Bowl champs. Since Blake Bortles went into Pittsburgh and beat Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. I mean, that was a huge upset that we saw. But I'll tell you what, with the way Jaden Daniels is playing right now, they got a chance against anybody. They got a chance to beat Philly. I mean, Jaden Daniels has already played well against the Eagles in one of the 2 games this year, and they won. So I give Washington a real chance against Philadelphia next Sunday. I really do. But that was a spectacular performance by Washington. You give all the credit to Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury and that coaching staff and the players. I mean, Jaden Daniels was phenomenal. 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Made plays with his legs when he had to extend plays, right? He had 51 yards rushing. We saw Brian Robinson get the ground game going. Austin Eckler was a menace as both a receiver and a runner. What a signing that has been for Washington. It's amazing, right? So I talk about the Jets on my local show on this YouTube channel, and I watched the Jets kick the crap out of Washington at a joint practice this summer. It wasn't even competitive in most of the periods. The Jet defense dominated Jaden Daniels. The Jet offense lit up the commie defense, and Aaron Rodgers didn't even play that day. It was Tyrod Taylor because it was raining out, and the Jets didn't want Rodgers to play in the rain in a joint practice. So to see Washington dominate Detroit, the top seed in the conference, maybe the best team in the league, some felt. To see that happen is truly unbelievable. Watching the Jets dominate the Commanders, and now the Commanders are dominating the perceived best team in the league. I mean, what an offseason for the commies. You get rid of that awful owner, Dan Snyder. You bring in new ownership. That ownership group hires Quinn, hires Peters. Quinn hires Cliff. You draft Jaden Daniels. You make some shrewd draft picks. You make some shrewd free agent signings like Eckler, like Ertz, so on and so forth. And now you're on the precipice of going to the Super Bowl. Amazing. Amazing how quickly it could change if you get the right people. Amazing how quickly things change. And what a brutal end for the Lions, where it felt like this had to be the year, given all the changes that are likely still coming their way. Tough. Real tough. As far as the games yesterday, Eagles defeat the Rams 28-22. Saquon Barkley, man. I mean, let me say this. If you're a Giants fan, the last 48 hours have got to be awful. Awful. You watch Jaden Daniels, who should be a Giant if Tommy DeVito didn't win 3 meaningless games. You watch Jaden Daniels, who should be a Giant, dominate. Remember Brian Dable on Hard Knocks is asked by Joe Shane if Jaden Daniels would be a quarterback he'd want the Giants to trade up for, and he said absolutely. But you couldn't make a trade with Washington. You tried to make a trade for Drake May. New England said no. And now the Giants have a nightmare season where they finish not even in the top 2, so there's no guarantee they get their quarterback. And they got to watch Jaden Daniels light up the Detroit Lions and Saquon Barkley have 200 yards rushing and lead the Eagles in a snowstorm to a win over the Rams to send them to the NFC title game. Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon Barkley. He won't win MVP, but he should be the Offensive Player of the Year. He is the Eagles. That team runs through Saquon. And we are watching Saquon completely change the perception of him as a player. Change the narrative even around the value of running backs with the type of year he's had, and Derrick Henry for that matter as well. But especially Saquon, because he is that team. He is that team. You know, you look at what happened in this game yesterday, the Saquon runs were the difference. That was the game. You know, the Rams gave you a gutty effort in the snow. Matt Stafford continues to show you he can still play at a high level. But the difference was Barkley at 205 rushing yards. That was the difference. That's what happened. Jalen Hurts only passed for 128 yards. It was Saquon Barkley in a snowstorm leading the way. And now, the matchup we want to see, can the Philadelphia Eagles run it down Washington's throat? And by the way, Detroit was running the football well, and I felt like they got away from the run. Jahmyr Gibbs was dominating that game. Is Barkley about to go off again now against the Commies? That's what you wonder. Because I think Barkley's in for another big game as well. And then finally, man, Buffalo hangs on. Buffalo hangs on. 27-25. I guess we'll never know what would have happened if Mark Andrews didn't drop the 2-point conversion. If Mark Andrews didn't drop the 2-point conversion, and we go to overtime, do the Ravens pull off the comeback after being down at halftime 21-10? I think they do. We'll never know, though. My issue with this game is twofold. As good as Lamar was in the second half, you can't play that poor in the first half. You can't have the fumble. You can't throw the interception. You can't give Buffalo extra possessions. You know, Josh Allen wasn't great throwing the ball yesterday. Only had 127 passing yards. But it was that Buffalo rushing attack that paved the way. Allen obviously had the 2 rushing touchdowns, but James Cook, 67 yards rushing. Ray Davis gave you 29. Ty Johnson, 31. It was a ground and pound offense for Buffalo. Really good showing by Joe Brady, by the way, that he can win without Allen having his best game throwing the ball. He could design an offense that's still effective without that. That's impressive. But it was right there for the Ravens to pull this off. And, man, you got to feel sick for Mark Andrews. By all accounts, a good guy. Beloved by that organization, beloved by his teammates. He had the costly fumble in this game, and he had the costly drop in this game that will go down in Ravens history. You can only hope for Mark Andrews' sake that Mark Andrews represents like what Billy Cundiff did for the Ravens. Remember, Billy Cundiff missed that kick. A year later, they won the Super Bowl. But Lamar Jackson played well enough to win, but he didn't play like the MVP the entire game, and he was going to have to do it if they were going to get it done. He was great in the second half. He was great on that final drive. I think the idea that, Lamar can't play in the playoffs, that's not fair to him. He led an 8-play, 88-yard scoring drive with the game on the line. The game on the line. 88 yards. I mean, he made plays. He gave him a chance. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because I think Lamar Jackson's about to win his 3rd MVP award. But you look at the guys that have won MVP awards, more than one, they've all won Super Bowls besides Lamar. And until he breaks through, people are going to continue to talk about his playoff resume or lack thereof. You look at the guys who won multiple MVPs, they're all first ballot Hall of Famers. Lamar Jackson's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He is. But he's never even been to a Super Bowl yet. And that's got to change. But you can't put it all on him yesterday. There's no way. He did his part in that game, and it's a team sport. But that's a tough one for the Ravens, man. Real tough. But you can't come out down 21-10 at halftime. That's the bottom line. It was a valiant effort to come back in this game. But nonetheless, when the Ravens had opportunities, you had a huge fumble when they were down 24-19 by Andrews. Buffalo capitalized on an 11-play drive and ended with a field goal. And then with the game on the line, Lamar did his job and Mark Andrews did not do his. Frustrating. But I'm not saying that Lamar can't ever win in the playoffs. I watched that game yesterday. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. He could have won yesterday. Mark Andrews catches that ball and they go to overtime. Who knows? All the momentum will be on the Ravens side at that point. But you can't put yourself down 21-10 at halftime. And, that's something that's going to be tough for, any player on the Ravens, any Ravens fan to be thinking about all offseason. Because that's where the game was lost in hindsight. So now you look at the matchups. And they are set. Commanders, Eagles. I believe it's the first time since 1986 that you have an all NFC East championship Sunday, NFC title game. And in the AFC, the better story is Buffalo winning if you're not a fan of a team in the AFC East. I can't stand the Chiefs, but for one more week, I got to root for them. And then go NFC in the Super Bowl. That's my takeaways. What are yours? You let me know down in the comments. Before we get out of here, some breaking news involving the coaching carousel. Breaking news, the New York Jets, according to Jordan Schultz, have scheduled an in-person meeting with Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. This in-person meeting will be tomorrow. That's Tuesday. And Schultz says if no deal is reached, he'll meet with the Saints in person on Wednesday. Here's what you need to know about Aaron Glenn and the Jets. If it's being reported that the New York Jets and Glenn are meeting, and he's taking their meeting first, and if it's being reported like Jordan's wording this tweet here, if no deal is reached, that means Aaron Glenn's preference is the New York Jets. His number one choice is the Jets. You don't word it that way unless someone's telling you that specifically. If no deal is reached, it is obvious the Jets want Glenn. Glenn wants the Jets. Is a deal going to get done? I would be shocked at this point if Aaron Glenn is not the next head coach of the Jets. And look, I'm not saying Aaron Glenn's a bad candidate. But I don't, for the life of me, understand why it is a foregone conclusion like the Jets have to hire this guy. Every Jet fan wanted a coach with previous coaching experience. Now we're going to hire a guy who's a defensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions, who's never been a head coach before. Aaron Glenn could be awesome, or he could be Robert Saleh 2.0. The key for Aaron Glenn's going to be to hire a hell of a coaching staff, especially on offense. We don't know. We don't know what Aaron Glenn will be as a coach. I do know this. He wants the Jets, and the Jets want him. That's only part one. Part two is going to be the coaching staff that's coming with Aaron Glenn, because that's what doomed Robert Saleh ultimately. Aaron Glenn can be a really good coach, or he could stink. But once again, the takeaway from the reports out there, Aaron Glenn's going to be the Jet head coach. That's the bottom line. I'd be shocked if he's not. If you're placing a bet on Glenn to be the Jet coach at BetUS, they're going to be offering you negative lines, minus 500. That's how big of a favorite I believe Aaron Glenn is to be the next head coach of the Jets. Just connect the dots. Read the tea leaves. It's going to be Aaron Glenn. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I wanted someone with experience. The Jets said, no, thank you. They better be right. Otherwise, every Jet fan out there is going to continue to be in football hell. because football hell is terrible. And the Jet fan has been in it for 14 years. And hopefully Aaron Glenn, a former Jet, is the guy to lead them out of it. That's what you hope. Do I have confidence? How could I? Will I give Aaron Glenn a chance? Absolutely. That's where I'm at. Hit the like button on your way out of here. Once again, thank you to BetUS for sponsoring today's show. Tonight, you have the national title game, Notre Dame versus Ohio State. Ohio State at BetUS is an 8.5-point favorite, so you could wager on that game tonight. I'm going to take the Irish to cover. I'm rooting for the Irish. I'm rooting for Marcus Freeman. I hope it's a great game, though, above anything else. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your Monday. Enjoy the game later. My name is Jake Asman. This has been the Jake Asman Football Show presented by BetUS. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you next time on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jake Asman saying, see ya.